Good morning, everyone. Dr. Christine Smith here with a really interesting guest today who is going to be talking about a cool new product that essentially allows you to do light therapy for yourself at home using the frequencies of your own body. So it has a background in Reiki and a variety of other healing modalities. So just a really interesting and knowledgeable person. This is Dr. Staci, and let me know if I'm pronouncing this right, Holweger?
Holweger. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, just making sure. But good morning. Thank you so much for joining me and talking about this and diving into a little bit of the science behind it, just because I love telling people about the new technologies that exist and the things that they can do for their health that a lot of people don't even know about. So why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself and how you ended up and falling in love with this niche, and we'll take it from there.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Dr. Christine. I appreciate it. So I actually started researching and studying stem cells over 20 years ago, and I banked both of my kids' cord blood. I found out about stem cells and the power of regeneration and helping the body to repair in any potential situation down the road. And actually, when my daughter was 4, we had a long, difficult year in the hospital with lots of complications from different things. And so after we got out of the hospital, we took a deeper dive down into holistic things. And most of that time, a 15-year span, was spent doing different types of stem cell therapy, hyperbaric oxygen chamber therapy, of course, many different in and out of the country types of stem cell therapies and things. And so all types of holistic modalities I did with her over that 15-year span improved her quality of life, helped her have the best quality of life possible. But you can only afford so much on stem cell therapy. It's extremely expensive. And of course it is invasive and things like that. So for me, my background in functional medicine and in integrative medicine really took place in the trenches with her over that 15-year span. And so when I came across this technology, which is about 2.5 years ago now, the idea of stem cells, the idea of repair and regeneration and, helping the body to get into homeostasis obviously was not new to me. And I was very familiar with patches, but I was not familiar with this specific wearable light technology that actually used the body's own light to activate the healing process. And so my background is in all types of holistic modalities. Integrative medicine integrates a lot of different types of therapies and tools. And then functional medicine, of course, as you know, let's get to the root of the problem, right? Let's figure out what's going on and let's help the body get back into balance. So
beautiful. Well, I love that you've had so much, not only like research in this background, but just personal experience in it. So it sounds like everything turned out okay then. And it just kind of started you on a really great journey to understanding more. And I know we're talking about light therapy, and to some people that might be like a little bit of an elusive term because there's different kinds. So can you touch a little bit on kind of like the overarching principle behind it, and then how we're approaching it today, but like other ways it's also used?
Right, absolutely. So most people are familiar with red light therapy, right? Like if you go to your get a facial, they put you under the dome to help increase the collagen and elastin and things like that. They're familiar with acupuncturists. I know my acupuncturists have used red light lasers, blue light lasers. My chiropractor has cold lasers. So many people are familiar with an outside light source, even infrared saunas. We have an infrared sauna. And so outside light doing something on the inside of the body. We call that photobiomodulation, right? Light creating change in the body. And so that is not new, right? The sun. I was boating this weekend for my birthday and we went out in the sun. Of course, I'm taking care of my skin and, applying good, healthy, safe, clean sunscreen. But also that sun hitting my body, we know that elevates vitamin D. Right, and melanin. So we know that light is creating change in the body in a non-invasive way, right? Nothing harmful, toxic, anything like that, right? We're not putting anything through the body, but just that wavelength of light. And there are so many wavelengths of light, okay? And this technology is very, very similar And it is, and I apologize, my dog wants out of the room right now.
No worries.
Let me let her out real quick. Oh my gosh, she's gonna go
Well,
crazy.
and while you're doing that, I'll just kind of touch on, so when we're talking about light therapy, the way that it's essentially working is it's a type of frequency medicine. Light waves are frequency. If you go into physics and you have the understanding that really we're all just made of different frequencies, that is why one frequency can affect another frequency. And this is the concept of entrainment, where it's like you have one wavelength and it affects another wavelength. So that's essentially what we're talking about with light therapy. And then depending on how you're using it, using a whole host of different wavelengths to have different effects on the body. So like the physics perspective from it, but yep, love it.
Perfect. All right. So this technology is a little different in that it doesn't need an outside light source, an outside laser or a machine or a bed or anything like that. It uses your body's own light. This is a non-transdermal patch. And so we know we emit light or heat. If I were to go outside, not right now, like you could see anybody and everyone, right? It's daytime. But if I were to go outside at night, I couldn't see the neighbor or the animals in the woods unless I had night vision goggles. That heat or light that we are emitting is what this patch works with. So what it does is it actually, when you apply it to the body, your body's light comes off of the body 2 to 4 inches at least, right? And so that is reflected back into your body, but in a very specific wavelength. And the reason why is because of what's embedded in this white part right here. So the inventor of this tech, David Schmidt, he's been inventing things his entire life, literally since he was a child. He's 60 years old. But he has been inventing these non-transdermal patches for the last 20 years. This patch here specifically, it's called X39 stem cell activation patch, has actually only been on the market for 4 years. Okay, it took him a long time in the lab to figure out how to do this. But what it does is inside of here is what he's invented, and it's a crystal lattice structure. It's a proprietary blend of organic amino acids, sugars, oxygen, and waters. Not things from your kitchen, right? Not sugar from your kitchen or amino acids after you work out, but molecules, solutions that come together in a very specific way to form that lattice. That's in here, and that lattice is reflective. And so when I put this on, my body's light immediately hits it and reflects back a very specific wavelength. And that wavelength of light elevates a peptide. And peptides are chains of amino acids, right? Proteins, building blocks of our body. And so it elevates GHK, Cu, copper peptide. That peptide's responsible for a lot of things, right? We could do a whole entire week on copper peptides, right? It's basically, in a nutshell, it's the holy grail of anti-aging. Copper peptide, we have an abundance of when we're younger. It declines as we age, and it does a lot of things. But one of the things that it does is it resets a third of your genes back to their young, youthful, healthy state. One of those genes is responsible for activating, elevating, and mobilizing your own stem cells. So when you put this patch on, I put my patch on in the morning, I brush my teeth in the morning, right? Which that happened hours ago. But I put my patch on in the morning when I brush my teeth. I leave it on 12 hours. And I know we had talked about why 12 hours? Well, we have clinical studies. David has over 90 clinical studies, himself, other doctors, labs, researchers, double-blind, placebo, controlled, peer-reviewed studies that show that this patch elevates GHK, copper peptide, in the blood. And it also shows, obviously from years of trial and error and experience, right, that 12 hours is what the body requires or needs or likes to be activated, right? To be communicating that our light works really well in a 12-hour period. After 12 hours, we take it off, probably brush our teeth at night, right? Take it off, throw it away, or put it on your pet. I don't put it on this poodle running around over here because she's 1, but I do put it on my 5-year-old Frenchie. But take it off, throw it away, or put it on your pet, and give your body a 12-hour break. Right? You need that break to be able to have your time to repair and to regenerate and let your body to reorganize, right? Let things start to get back into that homeostasis. And we do that daily, signaling the body daily, 12 hours on, 12 hours off, 12 hours on, 12 hours off. And again, this is just from being in the lab with people, doing studies, showing this is what's most effective. Another component of that is because we are 98.6, or I know you're out in Colorado, I'm down here in Florida, it's over 98.6 degrees still here, so we're a little hotter, but our body's heat interacts with this. That lattice starts to dissipate. Okay, so after around that 12, 14 hour mark, 15-hour mark, that lattice is starting to dissipate because of our heat interacting with it for such a consistent period of time. So it's kind of a two-way street there with the patch. It's like, I'm done, I need a break. Like, sure, put me on your ped, I'll give you a little less, right? But you need a break too. And so that's how we found that it is the most effective.
Got it. Okay. Wow. Thank you. And I was watching some of the videos where the creator was just talking about these. And I think if I remember correctly, he was originally coming up with this idea because he was working with some public service agents and they were needing to maintain their energy with things other than caffeine and stimulants, which I think is a really, really good thing to focus on, because that means that this could be incredibly effective in a totally natural way, not putting anything into your body, for anyone in public service, anyone in military, athletes, anyone who, and just normal people in general, because we all need an energy boost these days, let's be real. But really it can be just effective for a whole bunch of different scenarios, because also anyone who is restricted from having to or being able to take certain stimulants or medications or things like that, like this wouldn't necessarily fall into that category. It's just you reflecting your own body's energy, essentially.
Correct. And the first patch that David invented was called Energy Enhancer. And he was contracted by the U.S. Department of Defense, working for the Navy SEALs. And this was over 20 years ago. And he was inventing survival equipment, things like that for them. And they said, hey, can you help with the problem the SEALs are having with oxygenation, survival, with sustainability, endurance, stamina in the field? They're not doing well on all these, like you said, caffeine, uppers, amphetamines, things like that. And so he was actually downloaded by the divine, the idea to create a non-transdermal patch. Like, he was inspired, divinely inspired. Those are his words. I didn't come up with this on my own. I just listened and thought, okay, just started thinking of the cells and the energy, the mitochondria, the ATP, that vortex inside of that cell. If we can trigger that with using the body's own light, like capturing it and reflecting it back. So this patch triggers beta oxidation, or turns body fat into fuel. And that was going fantastic. Everything was great for the SEALs. And of course, we just celebrated, unfortunately, I don't want to say it's a celebration, but we just had the anniversary of 9/11 here recently. And so when that happened, initially over 20 years ago, that is what, pulled the U.S. Department of Defense out of that project with David and the SEALs. And bear more arms, protect the country, absolutely. And he thought, this is a really good, healthy, safe way for people to be able to get energy without anything going into their body that's harmful. And so he actually went to Richard Quick. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not. He's 6-time USA Olympic swim coach. And he went to Richard Quick at Stanford University and said, hey, I've got something I would really like for you to try out with your Olympic athletes. And I'd love to do some clinical studies. So he spent 2 years doing clinical studies at Stanford University on this patch alone. And this was, obviously, after 9/11, 2001. But what they found, the USA Olympic girls, women, let's just say female swim team, they had 7 of them try the patches. Okay, these are gold medalists. 6 of them on the first time out beat their PR. So that was pretty impressive. And Richard's like, I'm in. So you'll probably, and maybe, I don't know if you have yet or not, but if you Google or search, Olympics, you'll see Michael Phelps and different Olympians that have used the patches and still do over the years. And what happened back in, I think it was 2008, that year, they actually were like, whoa, the USA Olympics swept the gold. You're putting patches on, something's entering the body. We have to test these, and there was this huge, I remember my parents watching it on TV and reading in the newspaper, and there was this huge, controversy whether or not they were actually putting something in the body. There's, no doping, right? Anti-doping. And so they came back and said, sure, perfect, non-transdermal, you swept the golds, you can use these, they're perfectly safe and effective and able to use. So that was kind of awesome too. But David didn't actually start the company until 2004. So we're on our 19-year anniversary.
Oh, congratulations. Well, man, I didn't realize that even like Michael Phelps and stuff had used them. It's amazing.
Excuse me. Yeah. Pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone who just joined, the name of the patch is LifeWave. I'm going to put a link for this in my bio after the talk. So if you go to the resources tab, you can just access it there. But essentially, it is this patch that we are using because of the crystal lattice structure that the creator had made, and it reflects your body's own energy to stimulate the release of different peptides. Now, I know that you guys have a bunch of different ones that can do different things. So we were talking about the one that stimulated the stem cell related gene. And then can you talk about a couple of the other, yeah, thank you. That X39. Can you talk about a couple of the other ones that are some of your favorites? I know you have a really cool one for pain relief, which I'm really excited to try with a client of mine that has some chronic pain. But there's a whole host of them. So all of them kind of stimulate through different crystal lattice structures, different peptides in the body.
Absolutely. So my second favorite patch is called Eon. And Eon is a patch, when you mention pain, Eon is a patch that reduces inflammation. And we know inflammation leads to pain. That's pretty common, right? And so when we can bring the inflammatory markers down, we can see improvements in pain reduction. But also, you know as well as I do, that inflammation is the root cause of disease in the body. So when we look at the inflammatory process from the environment, from water, from foods, from chemicals, from stress, from, you know, all these types of things, personal care, health products, whatever, right? Inflammation is rampant today in people's bodies. And so this patch, like you said, signals a different peptide. It actually signals one in the liver to upregulate your body's own SOD. And so being able to bring down those inflammatory markers is super important.
For those who don't know, SOD is superoxide dismutase, which is a extremely powerful antioxidant. Think of it as like the ball shagger on a golf field that picks up all the balls.
Yeah, huge. So this activates that, which your body is supposed to have that active anyways, right? So we're not trying to cause the body to do anything that it shouldn't be doing if it were already in balance. So it's helping bring the body into balance. This patch also brings your body into a parasympathetic state. So you're either fight or flight, your sympathetic nervous system's turned on, you're stressed, you're go, 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 or you're calm, rest, relax, digest. And so we call this our happy patch because it does help bring the body in that happy state, calm, relaxed, anxiety, stress, emotional, physical, mental, those types of things. So when you partner these two together, we call this the dynamic duo. So no matter what's going on with you, you're going to get the body back in balance from using these two patches. You can use this one just by itself, all by itself, and I don't know where your stem cells will go, and I don't know when they will go there. I cannot determine that, right? This is not an injection. This is your body's own innate ability to know how to heal itself. But we know when you're in a parasympathetic state, that is a state that the body's more apt to respond and repair, right? And we also know that when you bring that inflammation down, we know inflammation is a consumer of stem cells. So you bring that inflammation down, that's why we call this the dynamic duo. You're going to get things happening a little bit quicker. And most people here today want it, and they want it now, right? I've had 30 years of chronic issues, but I want it fixed in 30 days. And we're like, oh, it may take you 30 months. Let's be a little bit more realistic, but we can help the body to do that. And because your stem cells decline as you age, when you activate them and you mobilize them again and you're resetting those genes, you have an opportunity there in your body for your stem cells to take old organs, genes, cells, tissues, whatever, and turn that young, youthful, and healthy again. So it's a tool that helps your body to assist it to do what it is designed to do. I would say probably one of my next favorite patches is X49. So it looks like this one, right? Daughter peptide. This signals a daughter peptide. This is David's most recent patch that he invented 2 years ago. And so these two work synergistically crazy as well, in a different way though. So X39 activates stem cells. Stem cells are, throughout your entire body, systemic. X49 is responsible for activating a different peptide, AHK. And that peptide loves muscles. So think building lean muscle mass, reducing body fat, heart improvement, cardiovascular system, because of that being one of your largest muscles, right? Think brain. It does a lot neurologically. So we can see huge improvements for those of you that are exercising or wanting to exercise, or thinking about exercising, or even if you're, a serious athlete, or even if you just go for walks or swims a day, whatever, right? So get out, do something, garden, I don't know. But we can see, based on our studies, huge improvements in that lean muscle mass and reduction in body fat, even in a 60-day period. But we looked at things like grip strength, which we know seriously deteriorates as we age. We looked at bicep strength. We looked at shoulders. We looked at core. We looked at quads. You know, we're looking at endurance, pulse rate, being able to, you know, have stamina and what you're doing, whether it's bike riding or walking or, you know, gardening, whatever, anything like that. But if you're an athlete like my son is, he's almost 19 years old, and he's been using these patches now for almost 2 years. Huge gains on the court when he was playing basketball, massive gains in the gym, just leaps and bounds over any other kid. And he's big, you know, weightlifter kind of thing, bodybuilder guy. So huge improvements. But you know, like one of my my business partners, Gary, he's 72 years old. He runs 2 miles a day now, every single day. 2 miles a day, like it's nothing. At 72 years old, that's not common, right? Not really. I don't think so. I mean, down here, a lot of people play pickleball. They play pickleball, but like actually going out for runs, he's like, whew. I've got another man in his late 60s that has shaved 3 minutes off his time, you know, and he's no pain, running perfectly fine, just lots of improvements in people, no matter what age you are. I always, you know, say from 2 to 102. So.
Absolutely. And I just saw a question come in. Someone said, you know, like, I have incredibly low iron. Have you guys seen improvement with the patching? So one of the things I will say, right, is nothing is ever a replacement for the customized care that you need as a person. So it may be that you need certain nutrition in addition to things. That's something where you'll have to talk with your practitioner. However, what we're talking about is a very nice adjacent therapy to whatever you are already working with. And obviously you always have to speak to your practitioner in your case, but if we are stimulating the body's own resources and fostering its natural intelligence, that is incredibly helpful on a number of levels, from, we were talking about kind of helping with gut health to helping with muscular building to helping with regenerative states. So, you know, sometimes absorption issues, they can be tied to a lot of different things, whether you're not getting the nutrient, you're not absorbing it right because your gut needs support. So all of those things can be an aspect of it. But when you are talking about the fact that, you know, you have athletes who are increasing their personal records when using this by fostering their body's own intelligence, that to me tells me that your body is starting to also kind of work with the nutrition in a different way.
Right.
And then someone else asked, like, do the patches work with meds? I'm going to let you answer that question.
Yeah, absolutely. So because this is non-transdermal, there's nothing entering the body. There are 0 contraindications to any medications, to any supplements, any nutritional things you're doing. You know, I'm sure you know this very well as too, Dr. Christine. When I took my functional med course on medicines, the book was this thick, and that thick, huge book with all the contraindications, with every medication, with every food, with every herb, with every supplement, with every drink. It was insane. I'm like, oh my God, thank God I'm not in this world, right? But that's why I love this, because you can use those medicines. If you're on medicines, I mean, I'm sure your goal would ultimately be to get off of them. We would hope that's what most people want, to be able to come off the medications because of the list of side effects, right? The things you're dealing with outside to make those numbers look the way they need to look. And I'm not saying there's not medicines that have a purpose and that are needed. I understand that. But on a daily basis, we want to do the things we can to get our body into balance so we don't need those medications. Nutrition is your foundation, right? Keeping the body healthy and detoxing, boosting that immune system, things like that. But this is very safe and effective. And again, I'm not your MD, so please check with your doctor if you have specific questions with your health, right? We're not here saying we're going to treat or cure anything, but know that we don't have contraindications. And in all of our clinical studies, we have 0 adverse side effects as well. So we are, again, bringing the body into balance, helping to improve organ function, system function, things like that.
And I know when I was listening to some of the videos, he was talking about how the efficacy of these, because of the way your body works and the way frequency and conduction works, if you are dehydrated, then they're not going to work as effectively. Is that, yeah,
yeah.
Your thoughts around that?
Yeah, so we are light, trillions of cells of light, okay? And we need water. We know that 70, 80% water. Different organs hold more water, right? And so most people are dehydrated, unfortunately. They are drinking coffee, they are drinking other caffeinated drinks, they are consuming alcohol, which of course add to that dehydration. And so we want to make sure, I say a goal is half your body weight in ounces. That's your goal, Okay. I want you to be hydrated though. And a lot of times what happens with people is they're drinking, and they're not hydrated. So like Celtic sea salt. I love Celtic sea salt. You know, one little tiny kernel of that little crystal on your tongue before you drink a glass of water is going to help pull all that water into your cells and tissues. This patch needs water for the conductivity. Light, water, we are going to be very effective. If you're dehydrated, you're probably going to get a headache. You're probably not going to feel that great. You may be, you may be tired. You may be like, oh my gosh, why am I not feeling like my best? Oh, I'm dehydrated. This is going to bring that up in your mind because it needs water, right? Our body needs water, and this works with that body's ability every single day to bring it into balance. And the water is a key component of that. And so we definitely want to make sure you stay hydrated, but I'm really big on electrolytes, and I don't mean Gatorade. I love sea moss. I love Celtic sea salt. You know, if you've got some kind of powder, something that's clean and safe, use something to get your electrolytes. You need those minerals, right? The potassium, magnesium, sodium are so important. And most people's they're out of balance. Too much of the wrong kind of sodium, not enough of the good potassium. And I'm not saying go take a potassium supplement. We don't want to do that. I'm saying, use your Celtic sea salt, right? Or use your sea moss. You're talking over 90 trace minerals that the body needs to function correctly. And so we want to make sure our foundation is there. And water is going to be key to you feeling amazing and getting the best results. Not saying you can't get results if you don't drink water, but let's be honest. I believe we're all adults on here, and you need water. So drink it. If you don't like it, soak it in fruit overnight. Like put a gallon in the fridge with some strawberries or pineapples or cucumbers or mints or something, and sip on it all day long. Just know that as an adult, you have to make choices. And, when you're a kid, they're like, I don't like water. I don't want it. You can't force them to drink it, right? You throw a fit. But you try to do everything you can with kids to get them to have proper nutrition and hydration. But when you're an adult, this is what you're going to do. You're going to do it.
Yep. And
water.
I recommend water to people all the time and go over how people aren't drinking enough all the time. And I still struggle to drink enough water. So I just have like a handy dandy water bottle. I know I have to drink 2 a day minimum, and that is always my goal. So yeah, it can be something like that where you just have a thing that you track for yourself. But I can't even tell you what percentage of people often operate in dehydration, which it basically puts your body into a cellular danger response in a sympathetic state. So if you're like wired and tired all the time and you can't quite figure out why, like double check your water intake. And I'm not saying like that is always the solution. I'm just saying it's usually part of the problem.
Yeah.
So just something to ponder and think about. So I want to make sure to kind of teach people a little bit about the technology that's in them too, and like the crystal lattice structure. So when he was developing this, what was the approach, or like how are they creating this to allow this to work in this way? Because this is just that's the reason I wanted to have you on. It's like I think this is really cool and quite profound, and something that people can do at home for free, that is fostering the body's innate intelligence, which is what I am all about, right? Like I am, even in functional medicine, I'm more of a cellular medicine doctor. I'm like, let me make sure your cells are functioning. And then most of the time the body can figure out a lot of its stuff on its own. We just have to foster its natural processes. So yeah, like I know it took him years to develop this, but anything you're willing to share about the technology would be great.
Yep, absolutely. Well, most people have mitochondrial dysfunction, right?
Yeah.
That's huge. And so they may not even know what mitochondria is. So think of like little ATP, little powerhouses in your cell, like cell-to-cell communication, the energy and everything that happens, you just don't even think about on a daily basis or don't even know exists. But we have to have that. Like I said earlier, we're trillions of cells of light. We're beings of light. And so what David figured out with this patch is a solution of what we call chiral stereoisomers. Remember I said earlier reflective? Chiral means reflective. Stereoisomers are isomers that come together in a very specific way. So it's proprietary. Obviously, we have a 20-year patent on this patch. We are in year 3 of that 20-year patent. But it's a proprietary blend of organic amino acids and sugars mixed with oxygen and water. And so finding the right combination for something like, I fell on the floor, finding something for Eon, easy peasy, no big deal. Could easily figure out. This was the #1 selling patch we had for over 15 years. Like this was an easy figure out. Glutathione, easy peasy, figure out which, like I'm saying this like it was me, I have no clue. But David figured out very effortlessly how to activate the body's own glutathione level by activating a peptide in the liver. Same thing, carnosine, one of my favorite patches. Different group of stereoisomers, easy to figure out which light wave will activate the carnosine, which is another huge antioxidant in the body. No problem. But with the X39, like I said, that took him over 10 years in the lab to figure out how to activate GHK-Cu copper peptide. So if you go to PubMed and type in GHK, you will find a wealth of clinical studies and research, nothing to do with the patch, of GHK and what it does and how it helps the body. Most commonly, you can talk to estheticians are like, oh, copper peptide for the skin, anti-aging, we use it all the time in all of our serums and creams, and la la la, right? And so it's fantastic for hair, skin, and nails. We know that for the skin and the outside. But when you go to, there's a website I'll share with you. Dr. Lauren Picard is actually who discovered this peptide, GHK-Cu, copper peptide, over 50 years ago. And it's reverse aging with GHK.com. And that is his site. So he has 5 decades of clinical studies and research and everything. And he's, you know, again, he's talking all about different diseases and different syndromes and different things that people deal with, illnesses and stuff. We are not, okay? We are not making any of those claims. But Dr. Picard does, because he can see that from his clinical studies in elevating GHK. And typically, GHK, you would inject it, right? There would be an injection, peptide injection. Most people are starting to become more familiar with that. IV vitamin therapy, right? You're getting your vitamins, your minerals, your nutrients, your peptides, you're getting all this stuff in an IV form, which is obviously invasive. Not saying it's not effective. Can't say it's always affordable, right? Most people can't afford that. This is literally a couple dollars a day. So it's super affordable. So that's where David spent his 10 years in the lab. He invented other patches along the way. Again, easy, triggering different types of, you know, peptides, but the GHK took the longest time to figure out and isolating which wavelength of light would elevate that. And that is what's proprietary. That's why I say it's between 400 and 1,000 nanometers, which is a big spectrum. But we can't say exactly what wavelength of light that is. That's why it's proprietary. But that process, that biophotonic exchange of information, when we put this patch on, what happens literally at the speed of light inside of your body, you can't even think it fast enough. And then that biochemical reaction inside of the body with that cell-to-cell communication and with the increase of mitochondria, right, that the ATP, that starts to grow. Your cells shrink as you age. This patch helps your cells to grow, the light to grow. And so that communication is heightened. And a lot of people will notice things for, let's just say, because we have people in the One Patch Wonder Club. I know you said, I think I feel a little bit more energy. I don't know. And sometimes people do experience more energy. They experience more quality, like as far as mental clarity, right? Brain fog starts to lift, or they have more concentration or focus, or they have more physical body energy. But we also see, and this is based on clinical studies, okay, in 3 to 6 weeks, 80% of the people are going to start to notice changes. Sometimes people see those things just from the elevation of GHK pretty quickly, but not always. But 3 to 6 weeks is what our studies show for pain reduction, better quality of sleep, faster wound healing, things like that. And of course, the longer you use the patch, you're putting it on in the morning, you're leaving it on 12 hours, take it off, throw it away, do it again, right? Based on your age. So if I'd said earlier, I know we've got a lot of people joining all the time. This patch is non-transdermal, not putting anything into your body. It's activating your body's own peptides through your own light, reflecting back your own wavelength of light. When you use this, by the time in your 30s, you have half of your stem cells active. By the time you're in your 60s, you have less than 10%. And so we want to give the body time to get back up to that, what we call full stem cell regeneration. Okay. And so if you're in your 30s, it's going to take you about 3 months. You'll notice things along the way. But if you're in your 60s, it's going to take you a solid 6 months. And like we said earlier, if you have something chronic going on, if you've been dealing with this for 20 years, it may take 2 years for your body to completely get back into balance, right? Obviously, using your other health self-care practices and things you should be doing, right? This is a tool to work in conjunction. always a tool to work in conjunction with proper nutrition and hydration and sleep and exercise, movement, right? Using whatever nutritional detox and supplements and things like that. So this is definitely not a miracle cure all, fix all, 30 days and I'm good to go again, right? You may feel things in 30 days, which is amazing, but also know that it's going to take time for your body to get back into balance. The longer you patch, the more benefits you have. When we look at reversing the functionality of organs, of cells, of systems, the tissues, we can see that in clinical studies. We can see that in the brain. We do EEGs, brain mapping, right? We can look at the brain and say, okay, you know, we don't see anything in the first 6 weeks, but man, after 6 weeks, woo, this brain starts to get into balance, anxiety's reduced, we have coherence coming online, we can see the, you know, the brain communicating, right brain, left brain. Those things start to happen over time. And so the longer you use this, the more benefits you will gain. You can, we always say, like, it's like a grocery list. Like, make your grocery list of issues. We have a health tracker we do that with. And, you know, just start crossing the things off the list. And a lot of times, too, with people, you know, pain's their biggest thing. And so we talked about X39. I kind of want to circle right back around to this, and Eon for pain reduction. But we have a patch called LifeWave. LifeWave is very similar to Energy Enhancer in that it is a 2-patch system. It's actually the second patch that David invented because it was pretty easy for him to figure out. These aren't signaling peptides. These are working with the body's bioelectric field, right? With the light and that cell-to-cell communication inside. And so LifeWave is a 2-patch system as well, a tan patch and a white patch. It opens up energy channels. Pain is stuck energy. And so being able to release that wherever the pain is. So say my right shoulder hurts, okay? I can put an X39 and an Eon on my right shoulder, absolutely. It may help with the pain. It may get rid of it immediately. It may be gone in a couple of hours. I just don't know because these two are designed to get to the root of your problem over time. Okay, but LifeWave says, let's do this instead of, you know, something over the counter or something prescription that has extremely toxic side effects to our organs in our body. So we put the white one on the right and we put the tan one on the left. This, you have a midline, polarity, right side, left side, right? Positive, negative. And so this works with that polarity to open up energy channels. So if, for example, and LifeWave has its own YouTube channel, LifeWave Health. And if you went to LifeWave, LifeWave on YouTube, you would see David's done 5 videos. They're like 5 minutes each, and he talks about different ways to move these patches around to be able to open up the energy channels, okay? So you can do white right, tan left to get rid of the pain. I had somebody text me this morning, what if the top of my head hurts? And I'm like, drink more water. I don't know. Stick a patch here, stick a patch here. If it doesn't work, stick one here, stick one here. Move them around. You know, that's what you can do with these is move these around to be able to figure out which way is going to open up the energy channels for you because pain radiates from different locations. You may say, oh my gosh, it hurts right here, but maybe it's coming from something back here, or maybe it's coming from something in your mid back. We don't know. I mean, I don't know unless there's a knife stuck in your back. You're like, that's where the pain is coming from. You're probably going to have to play with the LifeWave, but know that when you play with it, you'll be able to get rid of the pain. And that's a beautiful benefit. But again, that's not signaling a peptide. This is working with the body's own electric field, right? We know that. We know we are polar beings, and we have that system to work with.
So I'm curious, since it's working with the electrical field, just as a way of like explaining it in a way that might be more familiar to people. I know it would be different, but is there any kind of similarity to the way that like e-stim reduces pain through working with the electrical field, or how would you explain that differently for people?
That's a good question.
I'm thinking that they're different in their own way, but I'm just trying to figure out how to help this be a little bit more tangible, because I know energy medicine is different for people to listen to and to talk about. And which is why I love that you guys have all the research that you do. So after we answer this question, we can dive into that just a tiny bit more, because they've done HRV studies, they've done blood studies, they have a ton of peer-reviewed research. She's a PhD, which means that she's going to have a way higher standards of research than your average person. So yeah, I'd love if you could just give any more thoughts around how it's working with the electrical field and how that's operating physiologically, and then diving into like how that can affect things like HRV and different things.
Well, I think one of the first things I would say is we don't need any device to cause this to happen.
Right.
So that's a big thing, is that we're not using anything outside to try to create something inside to happen. Again, this is reflecting back your body's own light, right? Your body's light hits this, reflects back, and that starts that, because of that biophotonic exchange of information, the light, that cell to cell communication and the light communication in the body happening, then we start to see that biochemical reaction inside of the body. We start to see the body's communicate. I mean, it's just cellular communication.
So let me rephrase it this way then. So with these, instead of the light frequency operating with a peptide, these ones are working with a frequency that specifically affects your body's biofield.
Correct.
There we go.
Works with that bioelectric field that we have. That communication is there. It's present. But sometimes when you have obviously pain, right, it's stuck. The energy's stuck. And so you can place these, like a common thing is put them on K1, right? The bottoms of the feet, the balls of the feet. Let's just get this works with the meridians in the body. So let's just work opening up all those energy channels. K1 is an easy spot. Low back, right? Putting a set right there onto the white to the right of the spine, the tan to the left, to help to kind of break up that midline in that midsection in the body, to help open up those energy channels. Same thing with energy enhancer. This is not a pain reducer, but yet when you're opening up energy channels in the body, things start to flow better. They start to communicate better. And your systems, I mean, again, this is happening so fast. It's almost hard to conceptualize how fast this happens in your body. But when you increase that cell to cell communication, when you increase that mitochondria and help the body to do what it should be doing, right? What it used to do before this issue presented itself. And, like, for example, my husband, I mean, he's broken everything under the sun. He was a dirt bike racer, motorcycle, cars. I mean, I don't know how many vehicles the man's totaled. It's ridiculous. He's like 2 cats in one, right? There's like 18 lives there. But thank God I've never been a part of any of them with him. Neither were my children. So thank God. But he's broken everything, right? There was so much pain and inflammation and arthritis and things like that in his body. So here we are 2.5 years later. He doesn't have any of that, of course. But if he goes golfing, and there's not a cart, and he walks 18 holes pulling his own bag, which sometimes he does, he'll come back. And the one specific, he shattered his talus bone in his ankle. So it's been fused, like it's shot, right? And yeah, no, but it never bothers him. And I mean, it did for 23.5 years. So now here we are 2.5 years later, and it has not bothered him at all, unless he golfs. He'll come back. I'll put the ice waves on the inside of his ankles, that the white on the inside of the right, the tan on the inside of the left. And within 5 minutes, it just like frees everything up. It immediately, and again, he's patching every day, right? With X39, X49, Eon. He uses Alavita at night, carnosine here or there, whatever, glutathione every once in a while. But using the ice wave, when he golfs and he needs it, it immediately pops his body right back. Like, okay, let's go. Open this up and let that pain go. Even though he's walked, he's exerted himself, he's used it, he's abused it for 18 holes, right? Some of those golf courses and things. It can work that fast to be able to give relief. Another prime example, I have a lady that I interviewed a couple weeks ago. We do what we call patching podcasts. And on Thursday night, I interview 2 new people every single week. Been doing this, right? We have over 4,000 recorded testimonials of people. This lady has not walked on her own without assistance in years, I think 3 years now. Pain, low back, horrible, no steps, nothing like that. Just excruciating pain in her body. Nothing's worked. Medications, everything. So the guy that actually was her roofer, he goes to her house to put on her roof, and he says, "Hey, let me put some ice wave on your back to help you with your pain." And he videos her. He puts it on her back and videos her, and you can just tell the sheer shock that she's able to get out of the recliner with no pain. He videos her walking up and down like 5 steps, they're in her family room, and back down. And she's just like bawling. She's freaking out. What is happening here? What is going on? How is this working? But again, the body wants to be in balance, right? And so when you can signal that bioelectrical system inside of the body and open up those energy channels, then it's literally like a flood of relief. a flood of relief. And if you ever had acupuncture, you can feel when those energy channels open up and you're like, whoosh, there goes that, right? Except we don't have to put a needle in the body. A lot of people have major phobias with that. And again, you're talking time and place and location, expense, and whatever, that kind of stuff. And so just those 2 little patches on her low back, and she's just singing praises. You know, of course, she's using X39 and Eon now, and it's been several weeks, and she's, you know, been able to walk now without any issues.
Wow. I'm so glad you brought up acupuncture, because I was just thinking, I was like, well, this is really similar in a lot of ways. And with like the placement, like, you know, here you're on conception vessel. Yep, exactly. So basically placing it on like a main energy channel. So I like stuff like this where it's like a blend of modern technology and ancient knowledge and healing. And no one modality is the solution for everybody. It's about finding what works well for you and usually blending them in some way. But I was thinking about this for exactly what you said, like people with needle phobias or people who are so sensitive that they can't take supplements, which is a thing. And I see it a lot in like toxic exposure and different things, or people who have just kind of become allergic to everything. Curious, just off the top of your head, do you have any case studies of it helping with like those kinds of conditions?
Yeah, so with people that have any type of sensitivities, food sensitivities, supplement sensitivities, any type of, you know, energy, they can feel things a lot faster. That is the beautiful thing about the patch, is that, again, like you said, with acupuncture points, we can apply to these specific points that impact these systems or organs in the body. We can see that in our studies. But when you have those sensitivities, you're not entering, nothing's entering the body. And so it's not a food, it's not a supplement. And so what we find is when you get the body into balance, those sensitivities start to lessen. Or people that have outside, let's say allergies and things like that, right? That we weren't born with. You weren't born with those types of sensitivities, but they developed over time. And so we can see them start to lessen. We can see actually the absorption of our nutrients improve, like you mentioned earlier with someone was talking about their iron. We can see an increase in the effectiveness of the nutrients, the supplements that you're taking by 20 to 30%. The body being able to assimilate them and digest and use those nutrients. And even with your own food, being able to, the digestive system, something we see pretty quickly start to see improvements within that first, 30 to 60 days, we start to see improvements in the digestive system and immune system. And so if you have those types of issues, those things can reverse, right? You weren't born that way. And so you can get your body back into balance, and impacting the gut, the digestive system is a big, big piece of that. When you can help that gut to heal, then you can absorb those nutrients, you can assimilate them, and you can handle things that you couldn't before. I was listening to a doctor this past week, and he was talking about gluten intolerance, right? People that have gluten sensitivities. And it's like, well, if you have a gluten sensitivity on Monday, but yet you don't when you eat the same type of food on Wednesday, something's going on here. Do you really have a gluten sensitivity, or do you have like some gut issues that we need to work on, right? The motility in your gut and things like that. Is it timing and, of the week and of the foods? Or is it really the gluten? And we know with the hybridized wheat, it's crazy out there, right? The food is not food unless you know it's food. And so that's a whole nother, rabbit hole. But using the patch helps your body to be able to work better with the nutrition, to work better with your practices, right? Your sleep, your exercise, whatever. I'm not saying you have to go join a gym, but you got to have some kind of movement. Anybody can pop up a YouTube video on their TV nowadays and, get some cans of tomato soup or something. I don't know. Not that we eat that stuff, but do something. I remember my mom as a kid doing aerobics in the family room, with cans of vegetables. So whatever you need to do that's going to help your body to do that better, because of the communication that's happening and the balance that's happening inside of the body.
Well, and I guess one of my kind of last questions as we start to just kind of wrap up, I guess, because this is just amazing. And I think it's so applicable for so many people, but I want to circle back to kind of the, we'll call them industrial athletes, meaning like public service, and our like professional athletes, and people who are looking for optimization, which is kind of, the other end from the super sensitivity we were just talking about. But let's touch a little bit just on, because I know you guys have done some interesting research around it with the HRV and different things, but let's touch on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I'm curious. Yes.
Yeah. So looking at the energy enhancer, believe it or not, energy enhancer balances your heart rate. It actually, when you use this on your pericardium points right here, okay, we can see bringing that heart rate back into balance. So that heart rate variability is a huge component of this. What you think is energy enhancer, it's going to jack me through the roof. Like I'm going to be like, woo, wired, and it doesn't work that way. Everything's about balance. But when you look at your HRV and your recovery time, that's a big thing. So yes, I've increased my endurance, I've increased my stamina, I've increased my energy, but yet my heart rate is more balanced and my recovery time is faster. I'm bringing it back into that balance faster. And that was one of the first things that David noticed with energy enhancer, which sounds crazy when you're thinking about jacking the body up, right? You think it's going to be all like frazzled, and it's not.
I want to highlight what you just said about like it enhances recovery. So for all my athletes out there, I'm talking about proper recovery all the time. I love this. So yes, please keep going.
All right. So the other one I have to bring up is carnosine. Carnosine is a huge antioxidant. Carnosine is not like glutathione. Glutathione's systemic. It'll go anywhere or anything, right? Big master antioxidant. Carnosine says, I love the muscles. I love to help build lean muscle mass. I love to help muscle recovery. I love to help tissue repair. That's what carnosine likes to do. It's huge for the brain. Oh my God, it is the biggest patch for the brain, like balancing left brain, right brain hemisphere, improving cognition, communication, all of your executive faculties. Carnosine is huge for that. Massive for the organs. Organ function is so impacted by carnosine. You can see that in our studies. So up until the release of X49 2 years ago, when you're talking athletes, we're talking energy enhancer, carnosine for years, right? And then David came out with the X39, which we know does everything because of what it, the peptides it signals. These were like our big, workout patches. And of course, Eon if you needed to reduce inflammation or whatever. But with the release of X49, so for my industrial athletes or my serious athletes, whatever that may be, or if you're just like me and you just want to make sure that you have as much lean muscle mass as possible and as least amount of body fat as possible. Not like we're going to go like crazy, but I want to keep my body fat in a normal, healthy range, but I want to keep my lean muscle mass at a really optimal range. And these two patches do that. This signals the alanine, if you're familiar with peptides. So this signals alanine. So that is really important for muscle building, muscle growth. And even if you're not an uber athlete, it's going to work for you. But if you're looking at recovery time, if you're looking at upping your game, if you want to get that next step, if you're someone that says, I just need more endurance, more stamina, but I want more recovery time and I want to help build more lean muscle mass throughout my entire body and especially reduce the body fat in the midsection. Sometimes our industrial athletes may have a little extra in the midsection. And so this helps to reduce that. We could see an 11% body fat reduction in 60 days in our studies. That's pretty significant. And looking at the studies, you can see the pictures. They do all the measurements, right, of the people. So if you go to the studies, the startx39now.com, and you look, you will see pictures of body shapes, right? You know how you can see that, right? The scans and looking at the body fat percentage and the lean muscle mass percentage in each area of the body. You can see that midsection dramatically decreased from using these two patches.
And the way that I understand your guys' research, like you're pretty stringent about your research, so that's going to be people not changing other variables in their life and just using this. Wow, that's really impressive.
Yeah. And knowing David as well as I do, of course, we've had so many private conversations, but the clinical studies have been done from doctors all over the globe. But he also says, when they see the data, right, they're looking at all of the things. There's so much more that they're seeing in these people. That's changing, that's happening. But yet when you do a study, you go into a study and I'm looking for this system function. I'm looking for this organ function. I'm looking to see what happens in the recovery process, right? Or the pulse rate. We can see blood pressure reduction from these two. If you're reducing blood pressure in 60 days, you're bringing that pulse rate down, your recovery time's faster, your endurance is longer. Those are huge, significant changes. But we see some pretty other crazy things. So I have to mention this to you just because I know you'll be interested in this. So you know what a Faraday cage is, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this forms a Faraday cage in your cells.
Basically like a little Actually, will you explain that for the audience? You'll probably explain it better than I will.
Yeah. So a Faraday cage, if you're thinking like 5G, EMFs, like they can turn up the dial, right? Some of you are super sensitive to that. And so this forms that Faraday cage in your body to block those EMFs. I've got a chiropractor on my team, Dr. Harmon, and he has done on camera, muscle testing, obviously kinesiology. So he does muscle testing with his patients to show holding their phone without the X39, 49, holding the phone with it, and showing the difference in what's happening in the body. Now, we can't make these claims, so I'm not going to make those claims. But
essentially, increasing your biofield helps you to be more resilient to other biofields around you.
Absolutely. 100%. Yep.
Excellent. And then I guess last thought, so if people got really excited about this and they're like, I want to try all of them, how would you advise people about using combinations or amounts or different patches, or because it's like, yes, but we also have to allow our body time to process what we're doing and focus on the capacity that we have to focus on at once.
And so I'm going to go back to what I say is the dynamic duo, my starting point. My starting point is always X39 and Eon. Let's help the body reduce some inflammation. Let's activate our own stem cells, get that GHK going. This is my starting point.
Love it.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Drink water. And for anyone who's interested, like I said, I'll be putting a link on my Instagram bio, or you can just go to my website and go to the recommendations tab, and it's going to be right there. You can also go to lifewave.com/Dr. Christine Smith, and you can check all that out, but I'll put the link for you there as well.
Yeah, and the big thing is to start slow. Let's not do 12 patches today. I mean, I'll be honest. The first day I got the patches, I put 6 on. I really wanted them all, and I was fine. You know, I'm on my detox game. I always have been. Ate healthy, you know, proper nutrition, obviously, hydration. If I have to drink bottled water, I'm drinking Aquapana. I just haven't had time to get in the kitchen and make a glass yet of my water. But you know, that's the big thing, is to start slow. Let your body start to get that balancing process happening. If you're in pain, add LifeWave instantly. Like, just add that immediately. Don't sit there in pain and suffer. But when you look at adding other patches, you know, you'll see on Dr. Christine's website, you can purchase retail, or if you click the join button, you can actually have a wholesale account. And you have the ability to mix and match in a bundle, in a pack, at a deeper discounted price. So you're either paying retail, or you're going to do the wholesale brand partner account and be able to mix and match with her and get her discount and be able to buy different patches that you want. And I'm not saying start them all, but if you're like, oh, I want 39, I want 49, I want Eon, I want LifeWave, you can get all of those. And maybe you just start with X39 and use that for 30 days. And then the next month you go and you introduce, you know, X49 or Eon or whatever. You can mix and match how you want to serve your needs. So there's no custom packs. You just either pay retail or you pay wholesale. And so you have that ability to shop through your website to be able to buy in a wholesale pack. There's no requirements. There's no commitments. You have no fees. You don't have to order every month. You can do whatever you want. Beautiful thing about this company, I love that David has done that for everyone, so that anyone has the ability to have a wholesale pack and not have to, you know, pay that retail price. And if you want to pay retail, absolutely, right? You absolutely can. Just try it out and see. But again, I want you to understand that we are never going to claim that in 30 days, this is going to fix anything or everything, right? This is a process. And elevating the body's GHK and stem cell production and reducing inflammation takes time. So that's why on our health tracker, if you look at that, you'll see that's a solid 90 days. Like, let's look at a 90-day picture, and then we're going to go out another 90 days from there, right? As we're helping our body to get into balance.
Beautiful. Well, I could talk to you about this like all day, because I think like the biophoton modulation stuff is fascinating, but this is why I wanted to bring her on for you guys, just because I want you to know about the cool things that I learn about. And like, I think this is cool. I'm using it. So I wanted to make it accessible for you too. But if there is one thing you just wanted people to understand and know about health, what would you tell them?
I would say that it's a journey. It's a journey. Okay. It's not a destination. It is a lifelong journey. And incorporating those practices that we've mentioned throughout this talk today are vitally important. And everything plays a role. And you have to be patient with the process. right? You didn't get here overnight. It's like saying, I want to lose 50 pounds in 30 days. It didn't take you 30 days to gain that 50 pounds. It's not going to be gone in 30 days. So let's be okay with that journey and go on the journey with us, right? Myself, 2.5 years, I've been utilizing this technology, but obviously, 20 years in holistic health. And same thing with Dr. Christine. She's taking you on a journey with the things that she does, incorporates into her practice. And this is something that we would love for you to join us with. And we're happy to help in any way. If you have more questions, please feel free to reach out. You can DM her, of course, and I'm happy to assist and help in any way. She and I are working very closely together. And so any questions she has about what's going on with you specifically, I am literally one text message or one DM away, and I'll shoot back those answers right away so we can help you and assist you in this journey.
Absolutely. Yes, please feel free to click on either of our names, ask us any questions that you want, just because we're coming out with such cool things. And I think there is this transformation that's happening in the world where people are tapping more into wanting to support their body's innate intelligence. And I love anything that helps empower people at home. And that is why I wanted to bring you on to talk about these. So thank you so much for making time this morning and for your endless wisdom and knowledge. Like, we'll have to do another one of these. I love talking about this stuff.
I would love that too. Thank you. I appreciate the time, Dr.
Yeah.
Christine. It's been fun.
No, thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. All right. Sounds good. You too. Bye.